Welcome back to Not So Grand Garage. Out here today, getting ready to start working on the bus. As you can see, it looks a little different than it did the last time you guys saw it. But it's getting there. It is getting there. So, the goal today is to get our 120-gallon tank plumbed up and show you guys how to do it. Let's get at it. So here is our parts collection. We've got our 3-port valves for switching tanks, switching the supply and the return. Got another valve here, which is going to be on the outlet of the 120-gallon tank, so I can shut that tank off completely and isolate everything if I need to. Got our Wix filter head here, and the same Baldwin BF1212 filter that I run on this truck here. Got 10 half-inch MPT by half-inch barb fittings, which the vast majority of the fittings on the fuel system on the bus are half-inch MPT, so that'll work out. And we've got hose. This is AC Delco 32106, which is not made by AC Delco. It is actually, if you can see that, Gates 4219 XL. It's a 30R7 hose. This is the same hose I run on this truck, and it's a Barricade hose. The oil and everything doesn't mess with it. So I've had it on this truck for years, and it's not sweating, not breaking down, no issues out of it at all. And if you buy it through AC Delco instead of buying the Gates part number, it's actually cheaper. So got 50 feet of half-inch hose, because the supply and return on the bus are half-inch. But yeah, let's get started. So we're under the bus, taking a look around at what we've got to work with. On our big tank, we've got the supply and return ports right here. Now the supply is half-inch MPT, return is 3/8. So yeah, I'm gonna put our half-inch pipe fitting here, coming right off the tank to a valve. And that valve there will let me shut this tank off and isolate it. And then I will come off this ball valve here with a 90-degree fitting to a hose barb, which will let me run my half-inch hose up into the frame rail and forward, where I have to find a location to mount the filter head. So I'm gonna go on and get started. The good stuff. And as always, got to use the proper tool for the job. Alright, got our supply set up coming off the tank. Got our ball valve here to be able to turn this tank off. And yeah, just going to a half-inch hose barb. So now we will run our half-inch hose up in the frame. But now I need to find out where I'm going to mount this filter head. I want it somewhere that's relatively easy to work with, but I want it up out of the way. And yeah, I want to be able to make the line routing as simple as possible. So let's take a look around and see what I can find. So, got our filter head mounted through the frame, 3 bolts. Got our fuel line to the filter head routed. It's not all tied up. I'm gonna run some split loom or something like that around this hose through the hole to protect the hose from chafing on the frame. Oh, it's sliding under here, but we go down through this cross member, which I will be supporting this hose along the way as well, over to our shutoff valve in the tank. So that should work out pretty well. And then I've got the outlet coming off the filter head, routed back through the frame, and just the hose coiled up here. So next is to figure out where I'm going to mount these 3-port valves. So I'm trying to figure out the best location to mount these valves. It's either going to be on this engine cover here or down here on the floor. I'm not quite sure which yet, so I'm going to go out of the bus and see just how I'm going to have to route the lines to either location and see which one's going to be easier. I'm also trying to figure out the best overall routing because I want this filter here on the frame rail, this first filter, I want it to only see diesel fuel. These filters here aren't cheap and they're not exactly easy to find on the road. Plus I'm going to have a water separator off the tank anyways, so it doesn't really matter. With that said, this is the line here coming from the main tank. This is the outlet. So I'm going to follow this hose over and see where it connects to the next fuel filter. And see if it's going to be easier to just disconnect it over there or do it right here. I kind of like to leave this alone because of how it's routed. It's routed away from the exhaust and everything. So I'd like to avoid messing with it. So let's see how it looks on the other side. Man, that's rough looking. So there's the other side of that supply hose. Comes off that other filter head, comes around the back side of the motor, and comes over to the supply side of this filter head block. So I'm thinking I may disconnect this line here and just go pick up some adapters where I can convert this. This is probably -8 if I had to guess. It's either gonna be -6 or -8. I'd have to look. But convert this over to NPT on both of these. And then I could just run a standard hose barb off of both and not have to mess with the factory line routing. So after some head scratching trying to figure out how I was going to do this, I decided to go on and pull the engine cover off inside the bus to give a little bit better access. And I found that the return connects right here, which is where the injector return comes in and the injection pump return all tees in right here. And then this is the return back to the main tank. So I believe I'll connect my my return side right here. And I think I'm going to just connect my supply side to that side of the filter head and just route the lines with these up to right here. So anyways, I think the current plan is to mount the valves right here on the face of the engine cover and just run the hoses up on the back side of it and leave enough hose looped in there so I can pull the engine cover if I need to. But yeah, I think that'll be the easiest way of doing it. And the only part that kind of sucks about it is I don't have the fittings I need now. So this video is going to be broken up a little bit. And that's okay, over a couple days. But I'll have to order some -8 and some -6 adapter fittings. And yeah. So anyways, I'm gonna go on and make a list of everything I need, and I might be able to find it in town. I don't know. I'll do some running around and see what I can find, but yeah, it is what it is. But I think that'll be the easiest way to do it, and yeah, that's how we're gonna do it. So let's keep going. So we're heading in the right direction finally. I was able to go get some just regular plumbing fittings to adapt my 1/2" MPT hose barbs to the 3/8 MPT thread size on this filter head, which is the outlet of this filter head. So this is going to go up and supply the diesel side of the supply 3-port valve. Now this hose here goes over to the next filter head, so I'm going to clip it from all the holders and pull this line out and use the factory fitting from here on the T and then thread this in. So then this will be the main supply line coming from the 3-port valve. I know I'm probably jumbling my words right now, and that's okay. I'll make it make sense here in a little bit. So, found a little problem. Upon removing the supply line from down there, I got it pulled up, which it's been coming around the edge of this floor right here and up through this bracket, which has caused this over the years. It's completely eaten through the outer braids, so this hose is junk, and it happens to be the hose that runs over to the other filter head. So I'm going to get this disconnected down here and get it pulled up, and I guess disconnect it from that filter head down there and delete that line altogether. I really didn't want to mess with that because some of the lines over by the injection pump, they're not leaking or anything, but they've been in place for a long time. You start disturbing lines like that, they're going to start leaking. But this one was going to leave us stranded, so I'm kind of glad I found it. The other line, the supply line from the tank to that filter head, looks to be in good shape, so not too worried there. I will look it over a little bit better considering. But yeah, I think I'm going to go on and get this line here disconnected and out of the way. This line here is the one from the factory tank, which it has not been rubbing on anything that I can see. So I'm going to see if I can replace this line with the 1/2" line that I've got. That's going to be the oil supply. I don't think it'll be any problem. It's rated for just about every fuel and oil you can run through it, so it'll work just fine. I'll just have to route it carefully. But anyways, I'm gonna see if I can get it off that filter head down on the driver's side of the engine and see what kind of fittings I'm gonna need to adapt it over there. So, got our supply line situated, I think. I've adapted the filter head to the 1/2" hose that I'm running off the oil tank. So I've got it coming over here. This is from the factory diesel tank. And then this is the supply to the big filter head on the driver's side, the main filter head on the engine. So this will be the supply to the engine. This is diesel supply, and then all I got to do is run the oil line that is laying underneath up here and mount the T, and then the supply side will be completely done. Then all we'll have left to do is split this fitting right here, and I'm going to basically run 2 adapters, one on each side of this fitting, and come up here and do the same thing. So I'll have the return to the diesel tank, the return from the engine, and all I got to do is run the last hose up for the return to the oil tank. But yeah, it's coming along slowly but surely. So how this ball valve setup is going to work. These are 3-port valves. This port, the side port, is always open, no matter which way the lever is pointed. So right now it is flowing from the top out this way, and this port's blocked off. If you flip the lever, it'll go from this port to this port. and this one's blocked off. So this port here is going to be my supply. This is going to be my supply valve. This port here will go to the engine. This top port is going to come from the diesel tank, and the bottom port will come from the oil tank. So when this is mounted like this, vertical will be on diesel, and when it's switched over, it'll be on oil. As you can see, I've got the supply valve fitted to the engine cover. I just cut out the fiberglass, drilled a hole, and knocked this through. I will be using a couple little U-bolts to secure it to the cover, but yeah, that should work out really well. So now all that's left to do is plumb the supply side, and all of that's done. I'm missing some fittings to finish up the return, so I got to order those, but it is what it is. It's like any plumbing job. You got to make 5 or 6 trips. That's how it works. And our supply side is done. We've got the supply hose coming from the oil tank, the supply hose coming from the diesel tank, and this is the supply hose to the engine. So I've got plenty of hose left sitting here. I'm going to coil it up and secure it so it doesn't rub on anything or cut it or anything like that. But that way I can pull this engine cover off and have room to work. But yeah, I'll secure it away from anything hot, anything sharp. But that should work pretty well. Now all that's left to do is the return side, which it should be a little less complicated. But now that I said that, I'm probably going to regret it. But yeah, anywho, I've got to order some fittings, so I'm going to call it a night. And we'll get back to this when the fittings come in. Well, the rest of my fittings showed up to hopefully finish up this fuel system on the bus. So, on to the part I'm a little nervous about. The return side fittings that I need to split are right down here. And it's kind of an odd setup, and the lines are a little crusty looking. So I'm really kind of nervous about breaking them loose. Hopefully I don't break anything, but if I do, I've got time to fix it. We're not leaving for a couple weeks yet, but we'll see how it goes. Well, it has been one of those nights, but I think we finally got it somewhat pieced together. We've got the supply valve right here, which you've already seen plumbed up. And now the return side. The only thing I don't have, here, move this out of the way. We got our return set up off the top port. Goes back to the diesel tank, just like the top port on the supply comes from the diesel tank. The side port there is the return from the engine, so it's always open. And then the bottom port, which is not hooked up yet, will be the return back to the oil tank. Well, I'm gonna go and start this thing up and check it for leaks on these return fittings and see what we've got. Go from there. So, our supply and return valves are working. They're returning like they should, supplying like they should. And I've got no leaks at the lines. So, all that's left now is to secure our valves in the cover. I gotta cut another hole for that one. And run the return line back from the oil tank to the return valve. But I think that's gonna be a project for tomorrow, because I'm out of daylight and it's dinner time. So this took a lot longer than I anticipated, but it is what it is. So I'll wrap this up tomorrow, hopefully. Well, this has been fun. It's another day, and we've just about got this setup wrapped up. I've got the valves mounted. I need to trim those U-bolts off and clean that up, make it look decent. And I got all the lines ran, and I went on and wrapped these lines in a product called Cool It by Thermotech. It's a silicone sleeve that's lined with fiberglass. It's got a 500 degree continuous rating on it. It's got a 2200 degree maximum temperature rating on it, meaning like it could be in that temperature but just not consistently. It can also be you can also see open flame, and it won't damage it as long as it's not continuous. So that will protect these hoses from abrasion and the heat, because it's kind of tight back in here, and there's a chance that one of these hoses could land up against the cylinder head or get close to the manifold, and I just didn't want any issues. Plus, I had this stuff in the shop. I've had it for a long time, and I don't even know where I got it, but I didn't buy it, so it was free to me. Figured might as well use it. But anyways, all this stuff's done, so I'm gonna get this cover put back in and button up some of the hose routing, clean up the hose routing underneath, support the hoses, and then we'll have to get a little fuel in the tank and see if we can prime everything. As you can see, got it running. It's running on the diesel system right now. Got it primed up, no problem. And I don't seem to have any leaks that I know of. We're looking good under here. It looks a little close back in there around the backside of the head with that temp wrap, or that heat wrap on those hoses. We won't have any issues out of those. But yeah, all that's left is to get the filter put on the oil side, which I'm going to pre-fill it first, and then get some oil in that tank, get it primed up, and see how it runs on it. Now, so got a filter pre-filled. Don't forget the inner O-ring goes up here first, and ooh, that's gonna be a tight fit. Let's see. Might have to adjust on those a little bit. Maybe. Oh yeah. Well, that's interesting. So I'm gonna have to turn both of these a good bit. I'll tighten this one, probably loosen this one a little bit. Will hopefully not cause any leaks. But yeah, filter won't fit in there with the hose up there. Interesting. Well, had to take the hoses off and pull these barbs out, because even the barbs were hitting this canister. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm just gonna go down and get some more fittings and just extend these out a little bit on both sides of this filter head and hook it back in. Wasn't gonna prime the system tonight anyways, so it's not a big deal. I'll just stop at the hardware store on the way home tomorrow and button this up. It won't take much to do it, so no big deal. I'll just tuck these lines up there for now, but filter's on and everything else is done and ready to go. So I'm gonna crawl out from underneath here and clean up my mess and call it a night. Well, it's getting late and this video is going to be long, so I think I'm just going to wrap it up here. As you've seen, I've ran into plenty of issues on this, and heck, I've been doing this for over a decade and I still have issues. It is what it is, but we'll get it worked out. Like I said, I'll pick those fittings up and finish plumbing that tank in, or finish plumbing that filter head back in, and I'll make the oil system prime and test drive on oil a separate video. Hopefully this coming weekend we'll button that up, but we'll see. Anyways, you know, it's not overly difficult to do this. Just plan it out. You're gonna make a few trips to the hardware store, obviously, like I am, but yeah, so I'm gonna wrap it up. If y'all have any comments, questions, complaints, whatever, just drop them in the comment section below. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We appreciate you watching.